morning, everybody. How are we? Good. These sessions are going to look at three almost management aspects of family cohesion, family leadership, and possibilities of leading to problem-solving techniques within family where often relational issues are problematic. And this particular first session will deal with the issue of living with purpose and what purposeful living within a family is. I've begun with a nice little ditty there, which is a play on Hebrew words. Kavana, mindful intention, derives from Havana, and that's not the capital of Cuba. That's means understanding, and lasts from Shana Lashana, from year to year, eternity. Okay, so what we're saying here, there are three elements. One, what is the focused intention? What is your intention in terms of family leadership? And here I'm talking in terms of leadership, not being the traditional mold of the leader is the man, and in her area a woman is a leader, and in their particular areas children perhaps lead as well, and very often lead the parents by the nose. But whatever might be the case, that's a different kind of leadership. I'm here talking in terms of each member of the family being leaders in their own right. And I'm going to begin with the overt question, and that is, what is the purpose of family? I want us to have first a big picture. Now, I think women, mothers, grandmothers, and there may be great-grandmothers, I don't know, are in the best position, in my opinion, to intuitively have a sense of purpose of family. I think the major distinction between father and mother, man and woman, is that a man learns about family and woman is family, because life is actually innate within her. It's the woman who actually nurtures the child, and therefore there's something very profoundly, deeply innate about women and family as such. What is the purpose of family? Why have family at all? What does it mean to have a family? When you think back as to when you began a family, why did you begin a family? And of course we were young and we didn't think of those things in the broader sense of the word. The question really is revisited probably a generation later. What was the purpose of this enterprise? You start a business and you ask yourself, why am I starting this business? So initially you start because you need to, in the Yiddish, machen a leben, you have to make a living and the like. But somewhere along the line you begin to sense the innate profundity and enjoyment of nurturing something which is an extension of you. And therefore that initial notion of, well, you know, I want to start a business because I have to survive, becomes something much more profound. Apply that to family. Initially, we wanted to have a child because, and I'm not...
Everybody's doing.
Yeah, everyone's having children. It's always been the case. And again, I'm not approbating to you any superficial reason, but you may want a child because somewhere deep down you like to have the idea of a plaything in the family. Dress a child, wash a child, it's a nice little pastime. Of course, I don't believe for one moment that that is anywhere the extent of what is the purpose of family, and I'm not attributing it to you at all. Or you have a child because somewhere along the line the idea of being together and being father and mother appeals to you, and then get deeper and deeper and deeper, and only a generation later you start to realize, what was this enterprise called bringing a child into the world all about? And then later in life you have the issues of they're independent, and the relationship is one of independence. And what's my relational change there? What's my purpose now that they're independent? Whether they're independent as young single adults or independent as having families of their own. So the whole idea of purpose is revisited. And I think it's a good idea for us to revisit at this stage. What is the purpose of family? Any thoughts on your part as to how you might articulate the purpose of family at this stage of our lives, careers as family nurturers?
The continuation of family.
All right, a sense of personal extension and continuation of what this valuable thing is that you are the center of.
Especially people who went through the Holocaust and lost all the families.
All right, so continuity of, for the sake of those who have not been able to continue, etc. Okay. Any other offers? And there indeed would be
support, support, and just support, just being there.
Okay. The sense of contribution, the sense of being able to add valuably to another generation's experience and life and quality of their lives. Everyone in this room feels that they're able at this stage of life to make something valuable by way of contribution, which you would not have been able to make 20, 30, 40 years ago as such. So we're taking purpose from where we are now. I'm not looking at what's the original purpose, because I think you and I will agree that when we were in our 20s and decided to have a family, it was also simple and it was also ideal, and we didn't have any idea whatsoever what we're getting ourselves into. And now,
when that sense of purpose or sense of continuity is broken and ended, then there's nothing.
yeah, so you're avoiding that by having a family, you're saying. Well, look at what the purpose of family is, not the consequences of not. So what is the actual purpose as such? So that's a question you should stop and ask yourself. It's not one we can define by one easy statement here in this room. But it's something that's important, because if you don't have articulated your purpose as being the leader of your family, then it's very unlikely that the goals that you will want to reach and prioritization, which we'll talk about in the next session, and how productive it is as a family, will not follow suit. You must articulate the purpose of family and have a clear mission statement for yourself in terms of that. I can't do that for you, because it's so highly individualized in context of your life circumstances. In other words,
sorry, Laibl, are you suggesting that young girls or young mothers who have just become mothers would actually start thinking about what their purpose in life is at that stage?
No, and that's why these sessions are rarely for young mothers.
Right. Okay.
Right?
Yeah,
we are in a position of being able to mentor young mothers. We're in a position to be able to mentor families, because we're at a stage of life where we've got life's experience under our belt, we've gone through our challenges, and as a consequence of that we're wiser, and therefore we can help them define a purpose earlier than maybe we did, if we did at all. So I'm talking to us in this room, not out there to university audience of academic consideration of what is family as such. Okay? So, then the next question is, once we define a purpose, we have to prioritize our time. We have to prioritize our goals. We have to prioritize the outcomes. Because that can only happen once you have a purpose. Because once you have a purpose, then, as I'll do in the next session, you can actually say, all right, in that case I have to do this first, this second, this third, because this first most carries out the purpose of family. And if I don't do that, then I'm sort of pulled around by the vagaries of change around me, constantly being responsive to circumstances rather than me, principled, leading and creating the circumstances of life. Okay? And then the third session will be on productivity, the output. What is it that you're able to produce because you have defined purpose, because you have been able to prioritize, and now let's measure the output. Now I'm talking almost in managerial, industrial terms, but the terminologies apply to family equally so. And sometimes it's good to take these cold, detached industrial terms to family, because the word family and relationships is so embroiled with subjectivity and innuendo that we can never actually step back and make good, positive, calculated decisions. So I'm deliberately using language which is objectively removed from the notion of family as such. And then we've got the feedback loop. Once there's productivity, once you see the success, then it enhances the strength of your purpose, and it reinforces the way you prioritize, and the whole thing becomes better and better and better. So that's the overview as to what I'd like to achieve. So let's go back to purpose. I'm maintaining that at the core of purpose must lie a belief. Everything that has core to it must have a belief system underneath it. For example, why do you eat breakfast? Very prosaic question. Why do you eat breakfast? Tell me. Talk very basically. You eat breakfast because
You need some energy.
you need energy. Sorry, you said?
You're hungry?
You're hungry. You're responding to need.
Fuel for need.
It's what?
Fuel.
It's fuel, as per energy,
Just
etc. Okay. Now, let me go to the second step. So, why do you need fuel? Why do you need energy?
To run. To do what you want to do.
And if you don't have what to do, if you don't know what to do, if you don't have purpose, there's no reason to eat. And that's why very often there are medical conditions of people who stop eating or eat poorly, and that comes not out of that comes from a lack of feeling for life, purpose in life, etc. So their eating habits become poor and inefficient. All right. So, or it sometimes goes the other way. Addictive eating very often is the product of I have no real purpose in terms of what I do, and that affects my eating patterns. So everything underlies a belief. The belief is expressed in context of your purpose. You eat breakfast because you want to have energy to, and the next sentence is very, very major. What it is. In context of family, mothers eat breakfast because they need fuel to, and you have to answer that statement yourself. What is it that you eat breakfast for? There's a belief at the basis of that. I believe I'm making a very important and necessary contribution to family, to society, to individuals, whatever it might be. That's got to be a core belief. Why do you read books?
To learn.
Why do you learn? In other words, what I'm not questioning, you're right, absolutely. We read books to learn, but why? What's the purpose?
To improve ourselves.
Maybe. In
Develop
other words,
the brain.
there's a bigger purpose behind the act, which is a simplistic act. And you've got to define that purpose. And why do you wish to learn? Because you believe that it's important. If we were to have a discussion, why is it important to learn, we might have a long, hours-long debate about that. But somewhere along the line, there is your innate belief that learning is good, it's important. It's something we want to model to our family. It's something that we want to undertake because it makes us better leaders. There's some belief behind it, one of these things. Why do you pray? Why are you nice to people? Why do you care for your family? Let's take that last one, because it's quite a provocative one. Why do you care for your family?
Because we love them.
Because?
We love them.
We love the family, and caring is an expression of love. What happens when you don't love members of your family?
We still feed them.
We still what?
We still looked after them.
What's the belief underneath there?
Sort of a selfish love there too.
Yeah, of course there can be selfish love. You can think you love the children or the spouse or the parents or the grandparents, but it can be a user-friendly relationship where it's very friendly, but you're using them for your own needs without realizing them, whatever those needs might be, etc. So there is a deeper underlying core of belief. And to articulate that and to define that is important, because only then you have clarity of what your priorities are, and you'll have greater likelihood of productivity within the family. And I'm the first one to admit that many people, most people perhaps, go through life without this clarification process. And then families meander, and it goes off the rails, and we find ourselves helpless and feeling hopeless. And that's because somewhere earlier in the piece, or at some remedial stage, we haven't defined these clarifications, and therefore we don't have a strategy of improvement, of development, etc. It requires a bit of work. I admit that to you. Okay, so I'm just wanting to emphasize that you must have a belief behind what you do, and you need to verbalize that belief. Write it down, because until you get to the point where it can be expressed in words, it's unlikely that it's real. Okay, so what is the core belief behind these mini beliefs? So we gave answers at a mini belief level. You eat breakfast to have fuel. That's like a mini belief. But why? So have a look at the possibilities there. I want you to take these various possibilities that I listed there, and if you have a pen, see if you can prioritize these things. I've given you 8 options. It's going to take a little bit of time. I want you to prioritize what is the core belief behind these mini beliefs. Is it security? Is it power? Is it sex? Is it fulfillment? Money? Happiness? Relationship? Family? Health? Discovery? Stimulation? And other things. Just for your own clarification. And then other words that you could well introduce. And one of the problems is that sometimes it's one thing, and other times it's another thing. But what we need to do is to actually become fixed to what we conclude at that time is the core belief. Because then the mini beliefs don't keep varying. You don't just eat because you're hungry, or you don't overeat because you're anxious, or you don't eat just because you feel you need energy, but there's something purposeful behind the act of eating, for example. But here we're talking about family. Okay, complete that exercise in your own time, and I'm not going to ask for you to share. This is for you, for your own clarification. Tell your story. A beggar on the street saw the king. The king was walking past, and the beggar said, "King, this is a bowl I have. You cannot possibly fill it with everything and make it full." And the king said, "Well, what is it that I need to fill it with?" And he said, "Whatever you feel is the most valuable thing in life, fill it and I'll show you it cannot be filled." So the king first filled it with potatoes, and then the king filled it with apples, and then the king filled it with flowers, and the king filled it, and each time the beggar said, "No, it's not going to be filled." And continued and continued, and then there was riches, and there was gold, and there was silver, and constantly the answer was no. And so the king said, "You tell me, what is it that will fill this particular bowl?" And the beggar answered, "Desire." Meaning, desire is the bottom line of what we seek. So let me ask the question. Is desire, wanting, the bottom line of human motivation? What is it that's the primary motivation? What is it that drives you at the very core of your being? Was the beggar right? Is it desire? Is it the I want, I want, I want?
Well, that would be the animal soul's bottom line.
That would be the bottom line of our lower order self, you're suggesting. That we keep wanting things. Okay? If that's what you define as the bottom line of the lower ego self, what might be the higher self's ultimate motivation? What's your highest motivation? Higher order motivation. Maslow will call it self-actualization. What is the higher order motivation in life? What do you really see? Is there one word that can encapsulate that?
Fulfillment.
Fulfillment?
To bring Messianic.
To bring Mashiach, but why?
That's fulfillment. That's the
Fulfillment, yes.
Knowledge. Just to know one's
Knowledge.
purpose. To know one's purpose.
To know what the purpose is, that's the highest order of things. All these things are on track. In our teaching, it's, as you've heard me say previously, oneg, and that ultimately means connectedness and oneness. That's the highest goal that we seek, connectedness and oneness. Now let's apply that to family settings. I ask you, what were the most pleasurable moments that you ever experienced with members of your family?
Connectedness and love.
That's big words. I want you to articulate the circumstance. Go back in your memory banks and find moments that you found highly pleasurable.
When my children achieved some amazing results.
And why did that make you feel good? They achieved it, not you. So what is it?
I've had satisfaction that I was doing all.
You were
For many
absolutely connected to them. Their success was your success. You felt it through them. Absolute oneness. Everything in a family relationship setting, the ultimate expression of joy, pleasure, fulfillment is closeness, connectedness, oneness. That applies to all things in life, but especially in a family. So the idea of parent as mentor, parent as provider, parent as model, these are all very important. But if we were to ask ourselves, what is the ultimate expression of parent as mentor and parent as model, etc., etc.? The ultimate expression is that this is you and you are it. It's all one. And that the child is you and you are the child, and the absolute closeness. And that's why you care to mentor. That's why you care to model. You only care about that because you feel that sense of closeness and oneness. Now, of course, we live in a physical world, so we can't actually be one. But the closest we can be one is a child and parent. That's the closest. And as Chassidus explains, the child is always connected to the parent in a very real way, albeit spiritually. And in fact, in the Sefer Tanya, it explains how the child continues to have an innate, direct spiritual relationship with the mind and heart of the parent in ways that is real.
What about if the child is not connected to the parent, or the
Then you feel the opposite, non-fulfillment, upset, anger, all the things that are the opposite of fulfillment. That's how important the connectedness is. And ultimately, that's what defines happiness in terms of your life. As a parent, that is. So it's important to note that oneness and connectedness. Therefore, if we were to strategize, what can I do in my life as a parent in order to provide my child and myself with the ultimate state of fulfillment and happiness, is to undertake a strategy of repair if repair is needed, reconciliation if reconciliation is needed, whatever, at any cost. At any cost of ego, at any cost of feeling humiliated, at any cost whatsoever, because ultimately paying that price gets you to where ultimately we need to be, in states of fulfillment. To eat humble pie, I think, is the expression in the wider world. And I have found that this has been the most major barrier in family reconciliation circumstances.
and if that's rejected?
There's always a way. You may not have found it,
No.
But then I'm telling you, outside of your head, outside of your life experience, outside the limited you, an expert will always be able to provide you a way. There's always a way because Hashem didn't create otherwise. If we haven't succeeded, it's because we have failed in some shape or form. Takes two to tango, admittedly, but you can't simply say, well, I tried my best. Doesn't exist. If you pay a high enough price, are you prepared to get on your knees and grovel in front of your child or parent? If you're not prepared to do that, then you don't really want to pay the price. I know that sounds radical, and where's self-esteem and where's self-worth? But at the end of the day, if you have high self-esteem, high self-worth, you will pay that price. It's only when you lack that you're not prepared to. When there's still a bit of ego there involved. It's what we call yeshus. I'm not prepared to go, so that's too high a price. There is no too high a price for oneness. When we get down on Yom Kippur and lie on the ground in prostration in front of Hashem, that is exactly what we're talking about, the relationship with each other if need be. Very difficult, but that's the price. The problem is that our generation is seriously addicted to serial seeking. Meaning, I don't know what I want. I have to keep looking here, and I have to keep looking there, and I have to keep looking there, and there is this ism currently, and there's this fad currently. And did you read what they have written about the newest research in terms of cholesterol and the like, and what have you? Serial seeking. It's in front of our noses. Oneness. Connectedness. Being completely, having that sense of when you're with a loving child, as you said, and the child's success, you feel it because that child is you. Have a look on the other side of the page, point 4. Some of you might have heard of the name Dr. Martin Seligman. He's a very, very well known in the academic world, published many books on aspects of emotion, especially happiness and the like. And he suggests 5 purpose factors, purpose in life. And he says positive emotions, you want to feel good. Achievement, relationships, that's the dynamic. Engagement, that means getting involved with, and meaning. Now, obviously, these 5 words are so big that there's no way known that you and I can actually analyze these and say, right, this is the one that most affects me, and this is my primary motivator. And what's the missing term there? The missing term in Seligman's 5 purposes is the highest one that Hasidus and Kabbalah explains, and that's the one I articulated, oneness. And oneness doesn't only occur in terms of interpersonal relations. Oneness applies to how do you feel when you put a plant in the ground in your garden and watch it grow? Why is it such a beautiful experience to watch your plant grow? It's not unlike a child. That's why it's so beautiful. Something about you has extended into that plant. What is it that you enjoy so much when you have a pet and look after the pet and feel responsible for the pet? And it's interesting, very often we feel more for our pets than we do for our children and others. I don't want to be cynical, but that's unfortunately often the case. And I can say it in a very, very horrific way to show the kind of schizophrenic creatures that we are. How many Nazis were wonderful to their pets while taking Jewish children and throwing them against the wall and murdering them? That kind of schizophrenia. So we have to be careful how we articulate that. But it's very important to recognize that oneness can sometimes be misconstrued. With knowledge, with knowing. Someone said reading a book, learning. Because you and the information are joining and become one. and that sense of oneness, the beautiful aha experience, the sudden clarification of something that you didn't realize before, that means absolute state of oneness. And that is the bottom line of everything to do with family and life itself. All right, let's consider the following question and statement. Things that we desire. And you'll see where this exercise is heading. How much money is enough? What do you think? I'll show you how this connects to our discussion.
You don't struggle.
Huh?
So you don't feel you're struggling.
All right, enough money is to stop struggling. One proposition. Any others?
Are you satisfied with what you have?
When you're satisfied, okay? Let me just stop with those two before we go further. Is the struggle for one person the same as the struggle for another person? No, it's objective. That's fine. That's good. Do we actually stop struggling?
Well, it's in our nature to
Continue.
continue.
I think I may have shared with you before that I was in the during the last economic recession. I was counselling somebody who was a billionaire, and he had I think $1.3 billion before the crash, and he ended up with $700 million after the crash. Lost $600 million and cried like a baby, as if he didn't have a roof over his head, and he was genuine. He had lost $600 million. He felt bereft of everything. He was struggling with only $600 million, and it was real. The struggle doesn't stop. That's the problem. The struggle doesn't stop. Sorry, your response was?
I've forgotten. when you feel you have enough.
Okay, do we ever feel, that's the question, how much is enough? If our priority is filling the void of insecurity, there will never be enough. If we are insecure human beings, without belief systems, without purpose, there will never be enough, and there will always be a quest for more and more, and that way madness lies. Okay? So there's never enough if that's the area. Financially wealthy people are those who have enough money coming in without having to work to finance their purpose in life. Think about that statement. Say it slowly to yourself. It's the second statement there. Financially wealthy people are those who have enough money coming in without having to work to finance their purpose in life. Think about that. Money and purpose are separate. And then you've got the third proposition, which is the one that I conclude. Happiness happens when you have a bigger purpose than wanting more.
I agree.
Happiness happens when you have a bigger purpose than wanting more. If we want more from our children, if we want more excellence, more achievement, more initiative, we want from them more and more and more, that is not oneness. That'll create separation. Children cannot ever live up to parental expectations. Never.
So how do we stimulate our children?
That's a separate question you have to ask yourself. In this session, we have to ask ourselves, that's a good question, why do we want to stimulate our children? What's the purpose? Some parents' purposes, because they live their lives through their children. Their children are instruments for their own working out of their problems in life. What is the reason we want to stimulate the child? And what if the child is unstimulated? Why might we be concerned? What's the concern? Is the concern that my child will not succeed and I'll have to support my child? And what does that mean? Will they ever make it for themselves, etc., etc., which is all about me? My needs as a parent are not going to be like, I want to get finished with this business of parenting, and look, my child is not going to make it and I have to continue. Is that the purpose of parenting? Why would you want to stimulate your child? You want to stimulate your child because you want to provide your child's happiness and fulfillment. Not achievement. Happiness and fulfillment.
Don't they have to achieve that by themselves, independently?
No one does things independently. We live in a world of people. We live in a society. We're constantly buffeted by all the relationships around us, etc. And we are coloured by that.
You're giving them the starting point, and they have to find that happiness within themselves.
I understand that, and I understand that statement. I don't agree with it at all. I don't think so. I think oneness continues from beginning to end of life. Everything continues.
And if there's no
on step
oneness in the family, what happens there?
That's what you asked before, that you were talking about problem solving. Today I'm only talking about what's the purpose of family, not how to solve problems within the family. Yes. Okay, so the power of purpose. It provides clarity. Once you're able to write it down, put it in words, this is the purpose of my role as leader in this family. Then decision making comes faster. It leads to greater conviction by noticing its effectiveness. It makes for better quality of choice. It results in better experiences. And most profoundly, it is the glue that helps you stick to the path of your beliefs. Define your purpose, and that'll be the glue that allows you to stick to the paths of your beliefs. So it's really, really important to be able to define your purpose as such.
We have more than one purpose.
Can we have... I think if you're asking my opinion, I think there are layers of purpose. You have the big purpose, which is the one I'd like you to consider, the big purpose which covers everything in life. That's why I suggested oneness. That covers everything. Then you have many purposes in different areas. If that's the big purpose, then what is it within a family? What is it within a business? What is it within society? How do we get purpose then narrowed down to an extension of that, but appropriate for this particular arena? And then once you define the arena, there are sub-areas of the arena, and the purpose gets carried over into this. How can I articulate oneness in society in the area of antisocial behaviour? And how does my big purpose then affect the problem of young people going into schools and shooting and killing 26 others? But that will carry through, but it will become part of my overarching principle that will give me my strategies. I'll then prioritise my strategies. That's next week. And then I'll consider the effectiveness of those strategies, which is the week after. So yes, you do, but it's not different purposes. It's the product of one overarching purpose which makes us human beings, having been created by Hashem.
And you believe that despite a situation where there's no complete cut-off, that there is an answer?
Absolutely. Hashem never provides a situation, this is well voiced, that we don't have the capacity to overcome.
I'm searching.
We all are. I'm sure that I have, like you, circumstances in my life where I can't possibly see how the answer's there. But I know, with my higher belief, that the answer is there. I can't see it yet. And I'd love to meet the person who will help me see it. But I'm looking. So yes, the fact that each one of us in our life comes against seemingly brick walls, of course, that's everyone's life. But if you have a belief, which I certainly do, that the answer is out there, and I have to find it, because Hashem didn't create a world which is stacked against me, there is an answer, but this is my reincarnative challenge in life, then I'll keep looking, and not close my eyes and say, it's not there, it can't be done.
Even if the person itself in the family doesn't want to have anything to do with you?
Even then.
There is an answer?
Yes.
Okay.
Okay. That's a belief. Remember, that's not logical, it's a belief. And it's a belief that stems from my belief system.
Okay,
Right.
I'll still look.
So that, yeah, keep looking. I'm still looking. Maybe you can help me. That'd be great. Takeaway lesson. Guiding a family means allowing them to be an essential component of your higher purpose. Your family is an expression of your higher purpose. If you can't take your higher purpose and apply that purpose to your family, which is probably the most profound expression of your life's purpose, the most profound expression of your life's purpose is your family. Hashem has entrusted these souls in your care because you and I have the capacity to be able to apply the ultimate purpose to this particular configuration of souls or souls. Any thoughts? Any comments further? Do you think you can go away and ponder for a week as to what is your highest purpose with your family and be able to write for yourself, not for this class, for yourself, a clear sentence as to what is my highest purpose vis-a-vis my family, with respect to my family. I can't tell you how terribly important that is. And remember, at the stages of life that most of us in the room are at, that means family has more than one generation possibly. And that purpose extends to all those. Do not underrate the power of age as wisdom in terms of expressing your purpose in the family. You are much better armed at this stage. So this makes the whole idea of family development a more profound enterprise. But generally we go through life saying, well, you know, at this stage of life, what am I? I'm being a provider, and I'm the occasional visitor, and I keep in touch. That's not leadership. Leadership is that at all times you need to express what it is that you are as a member of the family. And that has to be expressed through your purpose as such. And that's the end of our session. No, I'm only kidding. Please.
Do you find that your higher purpose and that to your siblings?
Again, I'm sorry, I didn't catch that. Do you
apply your
higher purpose
to
siblings?
Your siblings?
Absolutely. If you're asking whether our expression of purpose extends to siblings or is it only to children, I didn't want to limit this conversation to a suggestion that it's only children. Siblings, parents, any generational family setting, absolutely. How we express it and how we manifest it is different to siblings than it may be to children, and it may be different from one child to another child depending on personality, etc., and again different to our own parents. So yes, it requires strategization as to how we express it to different members of the family. It's not one size fits all. But the ultimate overall purpose is the same, but how we actually express it varies. Like with one child, it may require this strategy, with another child, a very different strategy. There's a difference between purpose and strategy. Purpose is the big thing, strategy is how I take the big thing and transfer it. So what do you think? You think it's possible to take a step backwards and get a sense of the bigger purpose and then express it the very next time that you're speaking to your child, to your parent, to your sibling, etc.? It takes some transitional stages for you to actually interpolate that into your life. Like in anything that you heard me say, it requires practice, practice, practice. But don't leave it as an academic notion. Don't leave what I said today simply as that's great theory, but you know, in my life, or academia and practice are two very different things. And the next time you're with your child, the same circular argument and problem arises over and over and over and over again, okay, as it often does for a lifetime.
So should we learn from our mistakes?
We never learn.
Of course we learn from our mistakes. The problem is that most people don't learn from their mistakes. Any other questions?
Yeah, back to what you were saying before.
Yes.
So I think, would you be able to share with us, let's say, from your, an example of a practical purpose?
Within a family
back
setting.
like 20 years ago to when you were a bit...
I can tell
what I could relate to, something just practical.
Absolutely. One of the arenas where parents find challenge is guiding their more mature age children into career paths. In this day and age we feel a little, as I said before, helpless about that, because there's so many options in one generation that have arisen compared to what was the case even just one and a half generations ago. I mean, even when I was a child, it was very clear: you become a lawyer or a doctor, or if you can't, then you teach, whatever might be the case. Now, we have so many opportunities in society, and there's so many different manners of learning, whether it be by distance learning, whether it go to university, whether it is overseas, it's all within reach, that it becomes a very complicated mechanism for a parent to advise a child in one of the most crucial areas of life. And then there's the other problem. The children really take, by and large, responsibility for their own career paths independent of their parents, because very often parents feel and are genuinely unable to provide advice because of the complexity of the world we live in and the opportunities that arise. And therefore that's a very real thing. So what can we do in this day and age? And I look back in my life when I was guiding my children as teenagers in this direction, and I think one of the most important exercises I didn't do then, and this follows what Ilana, who's just stepped out for a moment, was mentioning, is why was I feeling concerned with any one of my children that they were making a poor choice? What is my motivation? Was I really genuinely thinking of their innate welfare? Or was I trying to impose my wisdom and my understanding because I knew what's right and they were about to make a mistake? Today, of course, that kind of dilemma wouldn't arise because I wouldn't dichotomize like that. I'd recognize that the child has to own their decision, and all I can do was provide a very broad parameter of wisdom that they can actually make their own decisions, rather than being very prescriptive and very directing in terms of that. So I think if you would ask me an example of that, I'd say it is in the area of directing the children's future life's role as such, and what I would be conveying by way of tonal qualities of voice, body behavior in terms of expression, that my concern was for their welfare, not that I was necessarily imposing my wisdom that they should be following. Subtle as that might be, I think makes a huge difference, because children pick up the genuinity of a parent's altruism, or when it's a power play or an ego play, or more often than not, a statement of parental insecurity, a desperation, a fear. We are fearful for our children. When we're fearful for our children, we rationalize, of course, I'm afraid for my child, but that is not a very good thing to convey to a child. Fear only promotes eventual distancing. So the child can't pick up fear, the child has to pick up your trust, and yet you've got to be able to put out there the parameters of wisdom that allows them to shape their own decisions and own their decisions. And that's at all levels. I'd apply what I just said from 3-year-old up, whatever might be the case. It doesn't have to be something as profound as career decision-making process. It may be something as simple as, how do I actually get on with my teacher? My teacher hates me. My teacher doesn't, whatever might be the case. And to be able to coax the student, your child, into a posture whereby they're able to solve that problem themselves, rather than me going up to the teacher and telling the teacher off, how dare you treat my child like that, which leads to no good end whatsoever. All right, next week what we're going to consider is prioritizing. What do you do first, second, third and fourth in terms of this issue of creating a purposeful family? Have a lovely week.
Thank you.
Thank you for your enlightenment.
Thank you so much.
Pleasure, pleasure.